My boss refused to give me the salary I was owed. What do? I burned down the entire building. It started when my boss sent me to jail for trespassing at my workplace. She decided to fire me and refused to pay me the outstanding salary and bonuses owed. I had to stay in jail for several hours before I was let go, because there was no proof against me. That woman has always been senile, unfair, and uptight from the first day that she bought the company. For 6 years, I worked well under the leadership of my past boss. Unfortunately, he got very sick and was not doing better, so he had to sell the company to a woman, who I'll call Miss Miller. We got an introduction to Miss Miller when my old boss signed over the company. She was a 45-year-old female, and from first impressions, I thought she seemed okay. She was a bit reserved, but came with several years of working or some successful companies. This was the first company that she was going to own and have complete control over. I was sad about my boss leaving, but what could I do? The process did not take long, and my old boss officially retired. But he was sure that Miss Miller would do a fantastic job. By the time he passed away from his illness, though, I'm sure he regretted selling to her. She turned a very successful company into a bankrupt mess. Leadership under her was much different from my old boss. In the first few days, she stayed in her office and did not talk to any of us, while she went through the company's documents. Then, we had the first staff meeting, where she had that few things were going to change in the company, but she would try to work together with us. For a few days, nothing changed, and then she started becoming stricter. She micromanaged everyone and would blow a fuse if someone did not seem to be listening to what she was saying. As one of the head engineers at the company, I was responsible for making important decisions. With my old boss, I did not have to run every one of them past him. He did not take an engineering degree and left the more hands-on stuff to us. Miss Miller wanted to be involved in everything. She would make suggestions that just did not make sense, and refused to be corrected even though she did not have an engineering degree. She constantly boasted about her many years of experience and the company she brought success to. Not only that, but she also criticized the way our boss had run the company before her. Under our old boss, overtime was rare. Both maternity and paternity leave were mandatory, and we got a decent yearly vacation. Miss Miller saw no need for that, and made what I saw as threats if someone did not want to take work home or they asked for a leave. Every single morning, we would be made to listen to her talk about how brilliant and super intelligent she was, and the plan she had to make the company great. The problem was that she did not think that anyone else in the company could be as smart as her. No one else's opinion seemed to matter. Only her orders mattered and nothing else. The entire structure of the company changed from the day that she came in. I'm talking from HR, meetings, communication, etc. Most of the systems that we used before were considered outdated by her. We had to go in for extra training so that we would be able to navigate all the work sites and systems, of which she did not offer a paid leave. Those hours that we took to go for training were deducted from our paychecks. That was not the only surprise waiting for us at the end of the month, as there were crazy amounts of deductions just for using the telephone or drinking coffee. It slowly began to feel like hell being under her leadership, and most people ended up leaving after a couple of months. She was feared because of her habit of calling people into her office, shouting at them and saying they're incompetent and not doing things her way. I started to wonder how she's been so successful in her career all these years, if this is how she treated her employees. But then again, management styles differ, and what do I know? I'm an engineer, not a businessman. But most of the next 3 years that she ran the company, everything went down the drain. We used to be one of the best performing companies, but at the staff meetings, the people in finance and marketing disclosed that we are not doing financially well. When anyone had a suggestion, no matter from what department, she would shut us down and tell us to do things her way. And, like any other company, gossip travels fast. And soon everyone knew what was going on in the different departments. There was an incident where one of our biggest clients pulled out of the company after we missed several deadlines of operations because she kept making us redo stuff, then firing our best engineer, who's literally been here for over 10 years, just because of an argument they had when he disagreed with her over a safety issue. She refused to listen to him and fired him without pay. They got involved in a labor dispute and she had to pay him a lot of money in the settlement. We experienced a significant pay cut by the end of the month, the reason being, quote, poor performance. I stayed because it was not easy for me to find a job in the same area, and if I did, I would suffer an even bigger pay cut. I have a family to support. For 2 years, many clients and suppliers dropped her because of the terrible attitude and behavior. We lost many contracts that we had, and the company's growth started to decline. Our company used to be very successful, but with a know-it-all attitude, we were behind our competitors while working hard to keep it afloat. The only way the company did not go bust in the first 2 years was that we had to make some small decisions without informing her. But in the 3rd year, things went very badly and she started to let people go. Through the grapevine, the news was that we were in a lot of debt and struggling to even keep the building operational. For 3 months, we did not get any salary, but I was one of the few employees that stayed. She respected me slightly a bit more than the other ones, but I think it was because I tried to keep the peace amongst everyone, as conflict or violence is not a way to solve a problem. Recent events made me consider changing my opinion on being a pacifist. However, she kept on promising that she was working on a plan to get us our salaries. But most people resigned because, well, they were fed up. I can understand why they were because I was trailing behind on bills as well. At the end of the year, she called me in and said that she had my money. To my surprise, she gave me a small part of what she owed me and told me there was no Christmas bonus again. I was tired by then and asked her to get my money to soon because I would not be able to survive till the end of the holidays without my money. That was what I got for being a nice guy who did not want to judge someone like her. I should have resigned and gotten another job, even if it meant relocating than staying for this nonsense. She lost her temper and said that she's been paying me a salary for months without fail, but now my impatience was ruining everything. She said that I was being unprofessional and disrespectful. I was a liability to the company and was not even bringing profit, so why did I feel as I deserved the pay more than anyone else? She went on to say that there were people in the company who worked harder than me. Example, she said, her. I got very upset and had to leave before things got worse. The next day was a public holiday, so I did not go to work, but later that day, I was taken in for questioning by the police. She has made baseless charges, like disrupting the workplace, not adhering to safety protocols, etc. I got out in a few hours, but she had already fired me after making such accusations. If the case went further, I was found to be guilty, then it would do a lot of damage to my future career. I was still 31, with barely anything to fall back on if things went south. Well, I went in for the very last time to pack my stuff, and I was angry. I wanted to do something that would get her back, but I did not have intention to harm anyone. The fact that the building ended up burning after I disabled the fire safety controls is technically not my fault. It was her fault for conducting a very important operation with faulty equipment, and without the safety precautions to kick in when the machines were fired. The entire building went down in flames. I was actually out of town for another job interview when I heard the news that the company building had burned to the ground, and she was being put under investigation. At first, I thought it was my fault because I did disable the alarms and fire safety systems that were supposed to control and stop a fire if things went wrong. I was brought in for questioning along with other employees. Her story was not matching the story of other employees. We had warned her months ago not to go ahead with that operation because of safety reasons and decrease in the workforce. When I left, I guess she felt pressure to do something to save the company and authorized the operation. Things went south. There was nothing to stop it because of what I've done, and the entire building burned down to the ground. Luckily, no one passed away, and everyone was safely evacuated but one of the workers who suffered smoke inhalation. The guilt about what I did was taking over me, though. I was too scared to confess my part to the whole thing, but in the end, I knew the truth would come out and was ready to face any sentence that I was going to get. I was quickly dismissed as the root cause of the fire. They said it was her fault because she signed off a document stating all safety measures were in place, even though they weren't because she wanted to cut corners. I got off with a few days of community service for my negligence. But get this, the building was not insured. Why? Because she had been trying to save costs on one thing. She got rid of the insurance. The whole company was now gone, burnt to the ground, and she was to blame. The false case that she had built against me, accusing me of untrue things when she did not pay me my salary, went before a labor board court. Several more employees decided to build a case against her, well, because of the unfair pay cuts, along with her refusal to give them their 3 months' worth of salary. No one in the company liked her. They all wanted her to make her pay for the way that she's been treating us since the day she got here. The company has been losing millions for a very long time, according to the financial people, and the main reason was her ideas. Unfortunately, the owner had not done research before selling the business to her, because at the workplaces where she had worked previously, many people did not like her because she took advantage of people and did not pay them. A lot of the people in town were very angry with her, and once she got out in public, things went in my and the other employees' favor at the labor court. She tried to prove that we all had a personal grudge against her, but because saying she was a woman. This was completely untrue because the company treats men and women equally. I've had superiors who were females before, but they never treated me the way she did. I put in extra work even though she did not appreciate me, because the company had been good for me in the past, and now she wanted to ruin my reputation so that I would have a hard time finding another job. The amount of proof against her for mismanagement was overwhelming, and the court ordered her to pay a settlement fee that would be divided between all employees for whom she had paid salaries. The other ones who had a different kind of dispute with her had a different case. We live in a small town, so obviously rumors fly. While I was still waiting for my settlement fee, then I would see her to go there and here, and my wife told me that Miss Miller had been kicked out of her house by her husband. He was a very rich and respected businessman whose entire reputation had been ruined because of the fire of accusations against his wife. My wife filled me in on everything, which she heard from her friend. It seemed that her whole family had turned against her after the incident, and they did not want to be associated with her. Her reputation was ruined, and it would be difficult for her to ever get another job again. I did not care about all of that. All I wanted was the money that I was owed. Her house went up for sale a few days after that, then suddenly I got my money for the settlement. As for her, I thought I would never see her again, and I was glad for it. She did make her own bed, so now it's time for her to go to sleep. I got started at a new job a little bit out of town, and have already forgotten about her. I did hear one time that she's been rushed to the hospital. She was sick with some disease that I don't know of. It made me wonder if the disease had been caused by her losing everything in her life in such a short time. Or was it just karma coming for her? If it was weird to think of her as sick, but I saw her several times and she looked so frail. Like she's not been eating well, and I did feel a bit sorry for her. But what she had almost done to me was something that I would never forgive her for. She passed away from some medical condition not even a week after I saw her. My mom, who has always been kind to everyone no matter what, was seen in her church several times and they had conversations. Miss Miller was now alone because everyone left her. She was in a ton of debt even after selling her house. She was sick from something caused by stress and no longer eating in her last days. Do you know what the sad part was? She had no one to claim her body. Had to be buried by the state. Her now ex-husband wanted nothing to do with her, including her family. Even though I was thinking, the whole thing is suspicious to me. Why would they disown her now? Was it that they tolerated her because she had money and now she did not? They decided they were done with her. But yeah, I think she takes the cup for one of the most horrible bosses I ever had. So yeah, I understand that boss was hard to work for, and she was controlling and basically a Karen of all bosses. But I'll have to say, I don't agree with OP about changing the fire alarms or whatever he did with the system, because that honestly could have put a lot of people in danger, and it turns out he did put a lot of people in danger. So that's the reason I don't agree with him in this story, even though I think his old boss is a jerk. Guys, let me know what you think about his decision to turn off the fire stuff in the comment section down below. Would you do it? Or no? Let me know. The next story we're going to look at is an Am I the A-hole story, and it's the final story of today's video. Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law my toddler will not be going with her on a vacation she planned without asking? Trigger warning for this one, it does involve cancer of a child. So let's get right with the story. I have an almost 3-year-old beautiful little girl. She's just a few weeks shy of her 3rd birthday. My baby was out in hospice 4 weeks ago after going through a remission late May. Unfortunately, the cancer has returned, except it's now crushing her optic nerve and is about 8 centimeters long. Multiple doctors recommended we make our daughter as comfortable as possible, as they do not believe removing the tumor is a good option. I have so much to say in regards of her diagnosis, but heartbroken will suffice for now. My husband and I have been making tons of memories with her for the past few weeks. We've included family in some of these memories, but we both feel that we want to spend as much time with our daughter as possible. My mother-in-law called me yesterday to tell me she booked tickets, hotel, and airfare for a trip next month. I thought it sounded fun until she said she was taking our toddler with her. Just her, my daughter, and her husband. She did not invite my husband nor I. My daughter isn't even 3 yet. She has never stayed overnight anywhere, and mother-in-law wants to take her for 1 week across the country alone. I suggested that my husband and I both go, and that way our daughter's more comfortable for God's sakes in the event she dies. She can't be gone for a week. Her nurses are here, her care is here. I suggested, what if we all go for a shorter amount of time? I came up with the various suggestions, to which we were all getting them turned down. I should add that if my daughter was not in hospice, I would not be able or feel comfortable with our toddler being across the country for a week alone without her parents. My child being in hospice adds another layer of complexity to the situation. I told my mother-in-law that her decision that she's made alone without consulting us was a solid no. She called me a few names and hung up on me. She then called my husband and called me a few names and suggested she would fight for rights before my daughter dies. I'm already grieving. My husband said we should acquiesce to his mother's trip to avoid drama, even though he agrees that our daughter is too young. But I want to spend time with her before the cancer takes her. She's too little. I said no for various reasons, not just to say no. Edit to add. I wanted to add a few things. My mother-in-law lives in the same country as us, in the same city as my parents. It's only about 20 minutes drive without traffic. However, my in-laws have always been very adamant that we visit them. So I usually take my daughter over every other week for a few hours for a visit. Rarely do they ever come to our home. My parents like to visit and always have. My daughter is much closer to my parents for this reason. Anytime my husband and I go to date nights, my parents come over and watch her because they like for her to be in her comfort zone. This is before the cancer. Since the cancer diagnosis, we've been in and out of the hospital for weeks at a time. My parents have still been very much involved with helping, but I'm the form of dropping by meals, helping with laundry, etc. I'm very close to my family, and my family has been very respectful of us needing some space and family time. I think my in-laws may be expediting guilt because they haven't made much of an effort to visit us, see us, or accommodate us. It's always about what I, their daughter-in-law, can do for them. Have always felt like an incubator who's just their facilitator and a relationship between them and my child. Also, to add, I'm set on distancing myself as much as I can. I've cut off contact with my mother-in-law and I do not want her around after this fiasco. I've completely blocked her from my phone and I communicated this to my husband. He's sad but says he understands. A few of you mentioned that this was an eye-opening situation, and it really has been. On many levels. Edit number 2. I saw various commands about mother-in-law possibly wanting to take my child on a trip to get her alternative treatment. Mother-in-law planned to take my child to Disney World in Florida, which is across the country from where we live. Mother-in-law lives in the same state and the same country as us. My husband and I have been taking our child to Disneyland a few times in our life, and the most recent one. Going for one day was exhausting, and my daughter was spent after the day. I can't imagine my daughter handling Disney World for more than a day, but also, I would like to be there for said trip. Even if my child wasn't dying, I would still not be comfortable with her going without me. It's such a bizarre situation. Mother-in-law isn't one for alternative treatment, and I haven't outright asked her, but I wouldn't be shocked at this point. Either way, my child isn't going anywhere with her. Supervised or not, I don't care. I've already made that clear to my husband. She wants to come and visit, it'll be at her own home. Even then, I'm still not on board after everything that's transpired. I've been thinking really deeply the last few months, but even more so in the last 24 hours. I don't know how I can continue being part of this family. I'm trying not to think too far ahead, but I'm seriously doubting continuing this marriage. Thank you again, everyone. Third and final edit. I'm really close with my family, specifically my mother and aunt. They know the wishes I have for my daughter. My husband and I argued about where our daughter should be buried for a good week. It was awful. He wanted her buried with his grandmother where his parents and him will be buried. I wanted her buried at the cemetery my grandparents are buried at, where I plan to be buried. My husband's in the military, so I'm confused as to why he does not want to be buried with his combat brothers. But that's entirely up to him. After this fiasco with his mother, I put my foot down about where I would like my daughter's final resting place to be. I just never thought it would be so much back and forth about where she'll be buried. The week-long trip we weren't invited on or consulted about, and his mother wishes, shit show to say the least. I love my husband, but I'm appalled by his behavior. I should also add that my family was very supportive about where I wanted my daughter to be buried, at where the topic did arrive. They said even wherever we want because it's not their choice. I even entertained cremation just to try and come to a middle ground in sorts. I did not even want to discuss burials and cremations until I absolutely had to. I've been avoiding it. Now it feels morbid to discuss it because my daughter's still alive. My husband's family was upset when they brought up the topic, because I did not automatically want my daughter at their cemetery. Their main argument was that my daughter carries their last name, so she should go there. My argument was, my family already has 4 open plots. I want to make one a double for me to be when my time comes. I'm even exhausted saying this, because this is my life and it shouldn't be. We should be a team, united in grief. Now, I feel like all I have is my baby and my family to hold me up. So this story was actually really hard for me to read. It was super emotional, but luckily, I came across a comment that puts it in words that I couldn't put it in about how I feel about this decision. Here we go. Not the a-hole. Nope, just nope. She wants to take your terminally ill daughter across the country for 7 days. And your husband would rather go along with it than tell his mommy no? Has everyone in your life lost their damn minds? Absolutely not. Your daughter's going anywhere without you. Period. Guys, I have to agree with that commenter, but if you don't agree, that's okay. Drop your comments down below and let me know how you feel as I read every single comment. That's all the stories I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one.